Okay guys, we're looking at a fun one today. This is the Apollo from Emazing Bike. They name all of their bikes after Greek gods. So Apollo was the son of Zeus, god of light, poetry, brother to... They have another Artemis. Maybe it's Artemis? Yeah, anyway, I'm kind of freshening up on my Greek mythology. This company's been around since 2011. They're from Sunnyvale, and I'm actually in Santa Clara right now. Beautiful day, fun neighborhood to ride around. I realize it's not mountain biking exactly, but this bike could definitely be outfitted with a rack, and you could turn it into kind of a cross-country commuter, something that you could crud across the paths and take out on the trails on the weekend. And it's just so light. That's the first thing that really struck me about this bike. 43.1 pounds. Most of the electric mountain bikes that I weigh are in the 50-pound range. So, you take 7 pounds off of that, it's pretty impressive. Now, what you are sacrificing is battery capacity. So this is 36 volt, 8.7 amp hours versus what I would call an average size pack, like the Bosch Power Pack 400. It's like 36 volts, 11 amp hours. So 3610, 3611. This is 36 8.7. Smaller, definitely, but also lighter, 4.5 pounds versus 5.5 pounds on the Bosch Power Pack. And then we've got a 350 watt internally geared hub motor. Okay, so compact, black. Love that they match the spokes. Relatively quiet and still fairly zippy because Emazing uses a torque sensor right here, like a TMM4, in addition to a 12 magnet cadence sensor. So the two work together. It's very smooth, much smoother and more satisfying than some of the easy motion bikes that I test. And they look a lot nicer. The battery's integrated. It's not just tacked on. At least in this case, it's black. It matches the frame. They also have a white frame. So this bike comes in 3 sizes. I'm looking at the medium, which is roughly a 19. So I think it's like 17, 19, 21 sort of a setup. It's kind of just like mountain bike, with electric kit almost added to it until you get closer and you realize, okay, well, a lot of those cables are internally routed. This square at the bottom of the down tube, that's actually where the controller is, and you can see it bulging a little bit right there. I love that they've gone with a true Vative chainring here with a big plastic bash guard. So this is going to protect that chainring if you come into contact with a rock or a big log or something like that. Really nice setup. Something that I don't see on too many electric mountain bikes. And I'm not sure, it kind of reminds me of the BMX days. It's a fun part. And for me personally, it's a throwback. 36 tooth right here. And then we've got Shimano Acera in the back, 11 to 36 as well. And just a really nice cassette, 9 speeds versus a lot of the other bikes in their lineup have just 7. That's the thing. And actually, I misspoke. It's 11 to 32 teeth. So there we go. Acera is a couple steps up from the bottom, whereas the other models have like tourney. This is going to hold up a little bit better. And it's nice to have a range of gears and different pedal options for cadence when you're going off-road, because it can be more difficult to climb. And at the same time, this bike jumps up to speed, up to that 20 mile per hour top assisted speed pretty quickly. I was actually very surprised, pleasantly surprised. And then the SR Suntour XCR suspension fork here, this is not air or anything, it's just a coil spring style, but it does have speed lockout, so you can kind of tighten that, almost like a compression adjust. Then there's preload, and then down here, we've also got rebound. It just feels really satisfying. I think it's only like 100 millimeter travel, but that's enough, especially for around town and maybe a bit of cross country. Then we've got these Cosmic Light Pro 29 by 2. So 29, that's kind of as large as they come right now in terms of diameter. It's going to give you nice rolling momentum. It lowers your attack angle so you can just cruise right over rocks and bumps without trying to go around them. They are a little bit heavier, and sometimes when you turn, I've actually slid out on trails because I was just trying to turn and I wasn't leaning quite right. So I approach these cautiously. But again, they can just go over things rather than going around them, and they tend to be very comfortable. You've got more air in there, combined with that suspension fork. Very nice setup. One other area that you could upgrade to make this ride even smoother, of course, is the seat post. So we're looking at this here. This is 31.6 millimeter diameter. Not an especially long post. I only have one bike to work with here, so I assume they're all sort of like this. And I guess, you know, the seat tube is rather high to begin with. You can see there's the reinforcements right here. So, you know, you'd have to be a pretty tall rider. And at this point, you probably want to go from the medium to the large frame. But for me, this frame is just about right. One of the other things that really sets this bike apart is that it has hydraulic disc brakes from Tektro. So 180 millimeters in the front with quick release, which is kind of nice. 180 millimeters in the rear. Long adjustable kickstand. Love that they've got a motor quick disconnect right here, so if you're doing maintenance on the back, yeah, you are going to need a tool because it's got nuts instead of quick release, but at least you can disconnect the motor very easily. It's pretty clean, you know. I think they've done a good job. Even got a neoprene slap guard over there so you won't nick up the frame, but you can see that the motor cable comes out the side, and yeah, there's this little rubber cap and there's kind of a spring there to keep it from getting too beat up. And actually in this case, the kickstand, I think, protects it pretty well. You just don't want to bend that or snag it when you're riding, because if that gets pulled out of the motor, you're kind of out of luck. You've almost got to get a whole new rear wheel. The wheel set on this bike is pretty nice. You can see there's reinforcement eyelets. I already talked about the color matching double-walled aluminum alloy rims. And then just back here to the battery pack. I like that you can charge the battery on or off the bike. See, there's this little rubber cover right here. A circular plug goes into there. But it's not a perfect setup, in part because you do need this dongle adapter when the battery's off the bike. You remember that little circle plug port there? Well, that lives on the mount, not on the battery itself. So when you take the battery off, you got to kind of keep track of this, and you'll see there's no leash or anything. It's just up to you to make sure that you keep both of these items together, and that can be a little bit, I don't know, it's just a little bit annoying. However, this is more of a value-priced e-bike. At $2,000, it's the same price as a lot of their other models, including the Artemis. And, you know, I feel like you're getting decent value, and you're actually getting higher-end components, including those hydraulic disc brakes and that 9-speed drivetrain. The motor, the battery, those things are the same. What you aren't getting is a rack and those nice color-matched fenders that Emazing Bike does for some of their other models. So I think that's kind of it. I'm going to jump in here and talk a bit about the display. Unfortunately, it's not going to be easy to see because it's actually scratched up. I thought this was just on the sticker, but, you know, I apologize. I hold the mode button for a couple seconds, and I'll explain to you what I'm seeing. 4-tick battery bar, so 4 increments, 25% steps there. That's bad. I'd prefer 5 or 10 or a percentage, because 4, I mean, what's the difference between 0 and 25% battery? You know, you really can't tell. And it surges. So, you know, if you're using the throttle mode and you're really gunning it, well, the battery drops way, way down, and then you let off the throttle and it goes back up. So it's just really inaccurate. Then there's a clock here. Assist, it starts in 1, but there are 5 levels, and actually 5 is throttle only mode. And when you're using the throttle, you have to move the pedals a little bit to activate it. It doesn't just go like some other bikes. You can't just, you know, let's try it right here. We go up to level 5, throttle mode, nothing happens, right? So it's a little bit of a learning curve, and I think it's listening for that cadence sensor. And in some ways, that's a great safety feature, but in other ways, it's just annoying because you're at a stoplight and you want the power to go through the intersection. Well, you need to pedal, which means that hopefully you shifted down to a lower gear, which kind of defeats the purpose of a throttle, in my opinion. I love that, at least in this case, while we were looking down here, I noticed there's this plastic. It's almost like it keeps the chain on track. It's not set up perfectly right now, but that way that the chain wouldn't fall off if you're going over bumpy terrain. That combined with that plastic bash guard, those are like delighters for me personally. Anyway, we got speed, miles per hour, odometer, and if you press mode, it goes to trip meter. So odometer, trip meter, up, down. That's kind of it. If you want to turn on backlighting for the display, you hold up and mode for a couple seconds together. If you want to do walk mode, you hold down for a couple seconds. Let's see if that works. There we go. But it really just surges. It's like, and then it's going to ease off, and it's going to do it again here. There we go. See how it's smooth and steady, but to start, it's there we go. I just let off again, and it's just funky. Not the perfect implementation of walk mode, in my opinion. If you want to adjust some of the settings, including the top speed, which right now it's 20 miles per hour, you can lower it a little bit. You hold up and down for a few seconds. This is where you can adjust the clock, adjust that max speed, adjust the miles to kilometers, so the units, and then also the wheel size. Right now it says 28, so I'm gonna, oh, you know, I was hoping to go to 29, but what they have is 700C, so I guess they don't have 29. Okay, and then there's backlight, the brightness. So it's a compact little display. It leaves the cockpit really clean, relatively easy to reach, standard rubber grips. They aren't locking or anything. So coming back to some of the value components here, this is not the highest end bike, but at $2,000 and possibly even a little less than $2,000, depending on, you know, the dealer that you're going to. I love how light it is, and just how, you know, for a 29er, feels really nimble compared to a lot of electric bikes. No, it doesn't have the mid-drive, but, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the mid-drives can kind of pull on the chain and grind the gears and stuff. They bring weight low in center, but having a throttle-powered hardtail, not bad. Okay, so we're ready to go. I'm going to demonstrate that throttle mode. So I'm moving right now, but I'm not pedaling, and the throttle doesn't work. But as soon as I move my crank arm even a little bit, there we go. Now it kicks in. I've also noticed that this speedometer, it's not really fast. So it got up to 17 miles per hour there, but it just didn't, I don't know how to describe it. It's like sometimes it just freezes. It doesn't seem like it tracks very quickly. And then you can see the battery, or at least I can. There's only 1 bar showing right now. Well, there were 4 bars a minute ago, but this is back to that kind of like surge or the voltage drop thing that I was talking about earlier. There we go. We're in grass here. Some little hills. I'm gonna slow down and see how the motor performs. So, you know, it's not much of a hill, but it is a little bit of a bump, and then there's the friction of the tall grass, and the bike's going, you know, 5-6 miles per hour. That's without me pedaling. So I'm just trying to demonstrate that, you know, it's a 36 volt, 350 watt setup here. This is a hub motor as well. So sometimes you see like, oh, Bosch, it's 250 watt motor. Well, that's not really the best way to describe it, because it has 75 Newton meters of torque. This doesn't have the torque advantage of leveraging your gears. There's kind of one ratio, and it's the 29-inch wheel, which is huge, and then the tiny little hub motor at the middle. Not saying it's bad. I love how lightweight it is, but it's just not that powerful. And see, here's a bigger hill. I think we're really gonna struggle up this one. Let's give it a go. Whoa. Didn't quite make it. Sort of hopped off there at the end, but yeah, again, the wheel ratio. See how big it is versus the hub motor in the middle, and it doesn't leverage your gears. So this is really a bike that I think you're better off to pedal. And the name on this, so this is the Apollo 93H3H, and that stands for 9-speed, 350 watt motor. Hybrid is what they say, but to me this isn't really a hybrid. 36 volt battery, H high-tech battery. I think high-tech packs this, but the cells inside are supposedly Panasonic, which is higher end. It's interesting. It's really nice to have choice in the electric bike space. There are very few bikes that are lightweight and active like this, that are better than just some kind of thing you put together yourself, because the wires are routed and the controller's really well placed, but not quite as good as the name brand, you know, premium bikes. This is like a step above like an Amazon bike or something, and they've got dealers. This time I'm going to start off with throttle mode for a minute, and then I'm going to switch down to level 4 assist, and you can listen to that motor. It's really smooth. I love the combination of torque sensor and cadence sensor. This is actually one of my favorite more affordable solutions out there. It does pretty well. bike is just super quiet. Hey guys, so I'm in ELV Motors after hours, and you know, they carry a bunch of these Emazing bikes, so I wanted to show the Apollo next to the Artemis and the Celine here, and give you a better perspective of a display that's not scratched up. And I have enabled backlighting by holding up and mode. So there we go, I just turned it off. But that's one of the lessons here. I'm assuming that one of the brake levers ended up overlapping on this one and just scratching up the display. And you know, that's a bummer, but it can happen not just in a bike shop, but at a rack when you're parking, especially when you can't remove the display. And that's why, you know, some of the more premium bikes do have removable displays. We're looking at a high bike here. It's got a little tab on the back. You can take it off and take it with you. So for a commuting application, of course, that's really nice. And then these have like USB ports a lot of times, little micro USB. Here's a Bulls bike, and it has one on the base. You just don't get some of those creature comforts with these bikes. And then back to that battery I wanted to show you. You know, you twist the key like that, pop this off. There's no real handle, but it's easy enough to hold on to. 4.5 pounds, again, 36 volts, 8.7 amp hours. And then that's the base. You see, there's no other place to plug in. So you need that little adapter cup right here, right, in order to plug that in. So again, I want to be really fair when I'm looking at these different bikes and talking about the pros and cons. And this bike definitely has some room for improvement, but I still think that for the price, just the way it handles, for someone who's active like myself, I like to pedal. I like to feel like I'm in control and I can, you know, maneuver the bike. And this provides some of that to me at a decent price. So anyway, for the full written review on the Apollo, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Of course, have fun out there, ride safe. ELV Motors is one of the spaces that carries this, but the other shops are down a little bit in Southern California, up in Oregon and Washington. So keep an eye out. If you see it, give it a try.